Hello and welcome, everybody. I hope you're excited for yet another Pass to Publication recording. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this morning, we have in Pass to Publication, we have with us Dr. Alan Quesada, and really excited to be speaking to him. Let's quickly recap what Paths to Publication brings to you. It is a virtual event that is hosted by the Center for Dual Language and Literacy Acquisition, ELRC Education Outreach, and the Graduate Student Advisory Council on everything that students want to know for research, writing, and grants, and of course, the overall graduate experience. So I really thank the audience for all of our joinees who are here today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box and we will come back to those questions towards the end or last part of our discussion. I'll quickly run everyone through a quick background on Dr. Quesada. Dr. Quesada, formally, thank you for joining us. You are a tenured professor and chair of the School of Modern Languages at the University of Costa Rica. Holds a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction and an MSc in Educational Technology from University of Kansas, as well as Master's in TESOL from New York University. In 2022, he received a UCR's Institutional Commemorative Medal for contributions to education and innovation. With over 25 years, Dr. Quesada has been involved in technology-enhanced EFL bilingualism, telecollaboration, and digital language testing. So Dr. Quesada has also developed key call programs, including CyberLab Kids, CyberLab Teens, and Phonics for the Ministry of Education. He has lectured widely and is published for Costa Rica, United States, Brazil, Canada, and the UK. Dr. Quesada is an active member of TESOL and several other associations. Over to you, Dr. Quesada, for your insights.
Thank you very much. Let me see. All right. Well, thank you again for the invitation to the Path to Publications workshops. And this is an honor for me to be here today.
Just 1 second, Dr. Quesada, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. All right. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to Path to Publications workshops. It's an honor to be here and to share some of the work that has been done at the University of Costa Rica on language testing, but also on the integration of AI in education. As the title says, my talk will be on AI-enhanced localized language testing for secondary education, a new approach to personalized language learning assessments in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a small country. We are 5 million people. And we've been working with the Ministry of Education to develop a localized language testing with international standards for kids and for secondary school students. My agenda will be to come up with some of the AI terminology, the language testing problem in Costa Rica, English proficiency indexes like the EF and our own index, the local AI-based language testing tools that we have developed, and some questions and answers. So what is artificial intelligence? There are many definitions, but this one seems to be like a general one. Artificial intelligence leverages computers to mimic problem solving and decision-making capabilities of human mind. and it is actually a mathematical method for prediction. And we have heard, big things about AI. It'll boost your productivity and earnings with cutting edge AI tools. It'll blow your mind, etc. And we have here what communicates humans with computers, which is the natural languages processing. In that case, this is an interdisciplinary field of computer science and linguistics, and is the ability for computers to understand human language. Machine learning, Machine can improve at its programmed, routine, automated tasks. Algorithms, I'm sorry, let me get rid of this. It's a series of steps and procedures that computers is instructed to follow. So we have the input, which is the most important thing. In our case, we have data from around 500,000 students taking our tests. We have the set of rules, the algorithm, and the output will be, automated writing instrument or the spoken instrument. And we have automated speech recognition. In that case, we have joined a company in Seattle that develops AI tools, and it's called Speech Ace Engine, and we have calibrated the algorithm so that it works as much as possible with our population. What's the problem with testing or language assessment, especially large scale? Well, language teachers don't have the ability or the time and resources to screen or evaluate students' language ability quickly, accurately, remotely, and especially at large scale. And those language certifications are very expensive. So we have created a solution, which is PELEX, the program for foreign language evaluation, and it is committed to developing and delivering high quality national and international recognized language tests that enhance their career, education, and life of people through a dedicated program of research and validation. Now, this, even though it has been created in Costa Rica for Costa Ricans, we have expanded our scope to Panama, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras. So we are expanding and getting that credibility through research. And here are some of the topics that we have been working on the cognitive tasks, for example, as an information gathering tool to calibrate postgraduate degree programs, admission tests, or the results of the English placement test, that is the one that we apply to secondary schools for kids and for secondary students. Now, we have EF, English Proficiency Index. This is a well-recognized company that assesses 110 countries in the world. And in our case, Costa Rica has been usually second, third, and now this year or last year, it was fourth in the ranking according to the EF Proficiency Index. As you can see, Mexico, for example, is 87. Brazil, 81 position, and Argentina is 28 out of the 110 countries, but it's the first one in Latin America. And Costa Rica, even though it's 41 in the world, it is fourth in Latin America. So, and you can see the Central America countries like Nicaragua, 59, Honduras, 33, and Guatemala, 58. And this is the range of what they have classified those indices with very low, low, moderate, high, and very high proficiency, English proficiency. Or we have the CFR equivalence of pre-A1, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. As you can see, Costa Rica is classified with the EF as a B1, B2 index. That's a moderate use of English according to this, to the EF. But we have also created an index, an English proficiency index in Costa Rica with our instruments. And Costa Rica has 7 provinces. So we have Alajuela, Heredia, Cartago, San Jose. San Jose is the capital city and province. And that's where we have high proficient, moderate proficient use of English. And in the coasts, we have problems. The same thing with the northern part and the southern part of Costa Rica. They're further away from the main cities. And I'm going to show you here. We started working with digitalizing our tests, our language proficiency tests in 2019. And we evaluated around 100,000 students, the last year students with the Ministry of Education, and most of them were A2 level. So they were low proficient in English. But I want you to look at the B1. 29% were B1 in 2019. Then in 2022, B1s were 36. And in last year, we evaluated the whole population again, and they were 50%. So we have seen a trend that goes up in the level or the band level, according to the CFR, the Common European Framework of Reference. But for policy making and for the authorities, stakeholders in general, it has been very useful to have an index and to classify those indices in the different provinces and schools within those provinces. Let me tell you that not many countries in the world has the possibility to have a mapping of the English proficiency as we have developed it in Costa Rica. How have we worked on this? Well, we have a good relationship with the Ministry of Education and with SpeechAce, the AI company in Seattle. And we have developed, using AI, adaptive tests. Now, we started working with linear tests. So a student had to be seated at the computer for 2 hours almost, doing for 1 hour reading, comprehension, then listening. And now with the adaptive test developed at the University of Costa Rica, the students spend half an hour doing both tests with the adaptive test. And the automated speaking test has been developed with the help of speech aids, with reading and writing as well. Now, to evaluate large scale, it's very hard. So we have come up with a framework for remote large scale testing and delivery and application. And we have PELEX, that is our unit of testing. And we have a plan, a very good plan, planning of the test with the Ministry of Education, with stakeholders, communication tools, infrastructure. We have been very careful because in Costa Rica, as most Latin America countries, the accessibility for online delivery is very low. So we had to develop three versions of the same test: online, offline, and hybrid. Then we have the test delivery, the test data analysis, and the test result reporting with stakeholders. So this is kind of, and of course, the test takers are the most important, the core of the frame. And we have developed also a way for students to get used to the test environment by giving a mock test before the actual official test. What are some essential elements of the AI-driven test? Well, we have the test analysis using NLP and text recognition. We have the psychometrics, of course, the ident-response theory and classical theory as well. And we have machine learning with predictive model. And we have used these tests for diagnostic purposes, a way of looking at the weaknesses and strengths of students and give them special feedback by having an adaptive testing process, diagnostic items, and personalized score reports. So human versus machine. Our model is actually human-based model of by using AI. With face-to-face speaking tests, it is almost impossible to do it at large scale in Costa Rica. We would need like 10,000 well-calibrated teachers trained to deliver the test, the language testing. So that's almost impossible. But some benefits of the face-to-face speaking test: broad test construct, mirroring real-world interaction, even though it's kind of fake to do the interviewing there. Positive watchback, not reliant on technology. Challenges: ensuring consistent delivery of test content. This is very hard to get. After 25 students, you just get bored, or you may change very easily what you hear from the students. Ensuring consistent marking, as I said, minimizing impact of speech partners on performance, and logistical challenges. With computer delivered and computer scored, we have the automated speaking and the writing. Its benefits: near instant scoring, reporting, high scoring consistency, on-demand testing. You could have just one student or 1,000 students or 100,000 students. Significant cost reduction, detail-oriented feedback or personalized feedback. Challenges: high reliance on technology, needs to minimize background noise, although we have been working in a computer lab with 10, 15 students doing the oral test, speaking to an avatar, and no problem with others speaking around you. And the candidate perception. It's very interesting that with our tests, students, even though it's an avatar that does the interview, students think that they are interacting with someone, and they feel that they are not being judged by a human person, so they feel at ease. This is the way we have been working with adaptive tests at University of Costa Rica. As I told you before, we have a linear test that students have to take from 1 to 50 or 40 items, and the adaptive test that adapts to each student. So the time reduces a lot, and students don't get bored after being 2 hours there, but they just have to be there for 30 minutes or so. And this is the way the adaptive test. We have 2 models of adaptation for the test, which is the adaptive test, classic one, and the multi-stage test. And one use the item response, and the other one use the rash response or model. Here are some examples of the oral test. So they have a situation there, and they have 30 seconds to think about the response, and spontaneously they would just talk to the computer and for 1 minute or minute and a half, and they will get very precise results on pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and task achievement. So it's not just to talk about anything. They have to respond to the question very clearly. And it has, we have been doing this in rural areas and high in the mountains in Costa Rica, in jails, in hospitals. Some students have, they would love, they wanted to have the test for graduation purposes, so they were hospitalized, and they were no problem whatsoever to have the test there at the hospital. Here are some stats on some of the questions. They read aloud. They ask a question. So they look at a picture and they have to ask questions or a question about the picture. As you can see, most of them are at the low or moderate level, according to the CFR. They have to describe a picture. So this is for 6th graders, and with describe a picture, they are at the low level. Share an opinion, low level, very low level, and open-ended, mostly at the low level proficiency. So speaking, we at the Ministry of Education, we have encouraged them to have more speaking practices, because most of them just rely on reading and writing. TEJOL is the test of English for young learners. So internationally, it measures the pre-A1 and up to A2 level. So just very low and low levels. And for secondary, we have done a testing on ninth graders and last year students at secondary. So, and you can see there that most students are very good at listening. They get better than at reading. and speaking, they are mostly at the B1 level, B2, very few at the C1 level for speaking at secondary. But still, this data has evolved and has been a trendy to have students move from lower bands to higher bands. Some washback impact on our test. Well, this strategy of testing has enabled the Ministry of Education to determine the linguistic CFR placement of the students' population with a national, the whole population, and a sample of the population. And it has served to develop curricular recommendations and improvement for each school modality. So we have different modalities like night schools, technical schools, bilingual schools. Some consideration with artificial intelligence, biases. I mean, it could be, we can perpetrate biases very easily. In our case, we have been very careful to have humans listen to the audio of the students' recordings and grade them, and then give back the information to the machine so that it learns from the best, from the experts. Privacy, we are very concerned about the use of AI in education, about data privacy and security, especially on students' information. And also, we have to be careful with over-reliance on AI as well. So we have done a very good job at having experts always overlooking at whatever the machine does, the algorithms, how they work, and constantly be given information from the experts. Some research questions that might be interesting for the path to publication in general. So to talk about the validity of the construct representation of the tests, how effectively does the test measure the target language skills, for example, reading, listening, in alignment with real world language use? That's a good type of question. Or reliability and consistency. To what extent does the test produce consistent and reliable results across different administrations, raters, and test versions? The impact and washback. How does the test influence teaching practices, learning behaviors, and student motivation in local educational contexts? Let me tell you here that in Costa Rica and most Latin American countries, what is being measured in foreign language education is reading. If you look at the kind of tests that are being used in educational systems, is just for reading. Costa Rica has moved to listening and now speaking and writing. It's the only country that has done that, and thanks to our own test. Because if they use other tests, international tests, it'll be very, very expensive. And how has that changed in the classroom? Well, teachers used to just bring readings for students to read and ask questions about the readings. And now they have moved to adding more listening tests and having more speaking practices in the classroom. So it has had a very positive impact on the actual teaching of foreign languages.
This is a really interesting point, Dr. Quesada, really interesting point.
Yeah.
Shifting away from reading and also integrating that with more listening activities and speaking opportunities.
Yeah, and that's something that is if you look at the whole Latin America and other countries in the world, reading is the only one that is emphasized. Does the test fairly assess candidates from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds without introducing bias? That's something that we are very, very careful about constructing. And practicality and feasibility. How efficient and feasible is the test in terms of administration, scoring, and accessibility for non-English speaking learners? Here is where our model has worked very well in terms of having a very good communication with the Ministry of Education, with stakeholders, with students, so that the whole process works perfectly. And here are some key research questions, AI-driven questions that might be of interest to you. How accurately and fairly does the AI assess writing and speaking proficiency compared to human writers? That's a good study to have, the same type of questions with humans and then using the machine. How effectively does the adaptive reading and listening system adjust to test takers' proficiency level while maintaining reliability and validity? What are the potential biases in AI scoring and adaptive item selection, and how can they be mitigated? So how can we reduce that? How does AI-based automated assessment impact students' takers' performance, motivation, and test-taking strategies compared to traditional human-assessed tests? And finally, how scalable and efficient is AI-powered test in terms of administration, processing time, cost effectiveness, while maintaining high-quality assessments? A takeaway from my talk would be, remember that while AI can be a valuable tool for language education, it's not the magic bullet. Good teaching and assessment is still the most important factor in student learning, and technology should be used as a means to support and enhance your teaching, not replace it. Thank you very much for this, giving me the opportunity to present some of the things that we are developing at the University of Costa Rica, and things that are changing lives for the good, and we're giving input to stakeholders at the ministry level and as a country.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. This is fantastic. So much of learning, and I really was intrigued, and I'm enthusiastic to learn how this technology and this project and program of yours has sort of countered the fact that not all regions have equal access to resources. So making it online, offline, as well as hybrid version. So I think that is great learning. Well, we're open to questions. Everyone, please, either raise your hand or post your question in the chat box, or you're free to unmute yourself and ask Dr. Quesada what you'd like to know. Maybe for starters, I just wanted to know what the greatest challenge was when you were trying to integrate these technological and digital tools into something like language learning, which is already so complex.
Yes, the most important thing is to integrate technology in the classroom, and not just imposing or being the most important thing. We have done, for example, in my work with CyberLab, as a doctoral student in Kansas, we started developing online, an academy online. And that's when I decided to create a platform for the Ministry of Education in Costa Rica for primary schools and secondary schools. And when that was in 2000, starting 2000. And what we did was a kind of workshops all over the country to get students used to the technology, how to integrate technology in the classroom. And the one computer classroom was the model that was used. The teacher projected the lessons, students starting looking at the screen and sharing things, and having groups to organize the information. So the kind of technology that complements what's being used and done in the classroom. So with language testing, the same thing. We realized that, Costa Rica was, each school had a computer lab. So that was a very good thing. And supposedly most of them had internet. But when we went to each 1,100 sites all over Costa Rica, we realized that, the principal was the one who had the most internet, and the computer labs were like very low internet connectivity. So that's when we realized that we had to come up with a strategy to have an online version, offline, the same test, the same conditions, so that students wouldn't have differences in testing, and the hybrid with those that had very little connectivity, and the scores could be sent later through the internet. So
right.
those are things that can be done to integrate technology in the classroom, in the foreign language classroom.
So basically, it was the access factor that was the greatest challenge. We have another really nice question from Marina. And Marina, would you want to unmute yourself and ask this question? So Marina is trying to ask, how often are these assessments presented to students, or ideally, how often would students take this language assessment, the frequency?
Yeah, the tests are being done at the end of the year, or in the middle, actually, in August. And because even though they are diagnostic tests for the Ministry of Education, for 11th and 12th year students, that's for graduation purposes. So that's a high stake kind of test, even though it's been done or developed as a diagnostic test. So that's why we have assessed ninth graders as well, so that those students at ninth grade, they still have 2 more years, and the results could be more impactful in terms of what they can do if they get to be evaluated the following year and another year. So what we have done, and what the stakeholder, who is the ministry, or that is the Ministry of Education, they have done changes based on the results to accommodate better schools, students, in terms of resources, in terms of infrastructure. And that's something that is very positive, because they also have implemented strategies for speaking or models in the classroom. So we have seen that even though it is being applied at the end of the year, those results have had some positive impacts overall.
I did, if you don't mind, I did have a second question.
Marina, sorry, is your audio, you're not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Much better.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been adding some comments, but thank you for that information. I had a second question. This whole thing is very fascinating, so I just have a slew of questions. You mentioned earlier having humans carefully monitor these assessments and the algorithms and all of that. Are these experts in place every single time these assessments are delivered?
Yes, that's a very good question. You know, we are very responsible to get, you know, to be as accurate as possible with the AI-based scoring. So what we have done and what we do every time we have tests is to have at least 150 of, it could be, you know, 15,000 students, but at least 10%, 50% of the application will be evaluated by human experts. Now, I have a PhD in education, and I have had some training in language testing. However, these experts are being trained to assess, and they are certified for language testing. So they listen, they correct the writing as well, and then before we have to wait, you know, some weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, for them to score the 10% of the application. And we might give the results right away. I mean, the machine could give it to, but we wait until our raters have them rated, and introduce that information to the algorithm so that it calibrates and give a more accurate as possible score.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Marina. We have another question. So when does the school year begin if mid-year is August?
Yeah. So that's the second half of the school year. Classes start in February in Costa Rica at the secondary level, and it finishes in December. So we are in December, January, and February, or January and February, our summer break.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Let me tell you something else. So we have expanded this exercise with secondary to higher education. So for the first time last year, we started evaluating entering students to the university, and that has given the authorities very good information by faculty, school, and regions. So it is a valuable kind of information so that we can create at the higher education level, create strategies to accompany students for their, you know, foreign language journey until they graduate and become bilingual, at least with a B1, B2 level, according to the CFR.
Interesting. Dr. Quesada, how much of funding was required for, how much of monetary allocation was required for this? It's a huge project. You visited what, 1,100 sites in Costa Rica, you said?
Yes, 1,100 sites. And those are, you know, like, we have created an alliance with school districts so that we can use those sites to, and we train teachers and IT people online so that they can, you know, we don't have to be everywhere, but at least we have created communication tools that are very efficient, and every time that we have an application, everybody is in sync, and we have had very few problems in terms of connectivity or infrastructure.
Fantastic. And finally, we have this one last question. You mentioned an avatar within the assessment that students can interact with, and how this helps students feel at ease. So can you share more about exactly what this avatar interacts with the test taker, how it does that?
This is, we have all kinds of avatars, you know, like female, male, young female, older female, males. And what's interesting is that, you know, the avatar interacts in quotes, interacts with students. So they are the ones who talk and move like a human, but it's just an avatar. And what's the perception of the students? This is what catches my attention. You know, 2 weeks ago, I was looking at entering students at the university, and this guy, you know, just starting like I'm interacting with you, talking to the avatar as if the avatar were, I don't know, was real. And he was so involved in the conversation that I wanted to record that, because, you know, when a student feels that interaction is real for them, they feel more comfortable. And what we have heard from students is that, you know, when a human interacts, we tend to make faces or, you know, react to whatever the student is saying, and that might affect their performance. Or if I start writing, you know, mistakes, and well, if I start writing, that means that I'm making mistakes, so the student get nervous. And with the avatar, it's relaxed, and they just talk to this avatar. And we haven't done any research, and I think that we will, to have the same population with humans recorded, and then with the avatar, and see the differences in performance and perception of the students. So qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis as well.
That was going to be my follow-up question. How do you measure the reduction in anxiety levels? Because that's a very serious impact for students taking assessments, that anxiety level. So that would be a really interesting thing to study and get results on.
Right. And not only with speaking, with reading and listening. You know, to have a person seated there for 2 hours, it is very tiring. I mean, you get tired after going through 100 questions on reading comprehension and texts. With the adaptive test that we have created, you know, with 8 questions, and we have done that analysis. 8 questions would be the minimum, but it could be 15 out of the 50. So the students in 10 minutes, they might get finished with the reading test, and then with 10 more minutes with the listening test. And those questions are based on my answer, so it's personalized. And so the anxiety levels lowers a lot, and they don't feel tired, you know, they're still with energy. And they get, sometimes the reaction is, okay, wait a minute, I mean, did I do something wrong? Because I just stayed there for 5 minutes and the computer stopped, or the test finished. And but that's how adaptivity on test is very, very useful. And we have done with the same population the adaptive test and the linear test with the 50 questions. And the results are very, very similar. So that means that even though the student may answer 10, 8 questions or 15, if they had done it with the 50 question test, the same results.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Dr. Quesada. On that note, I think what I really enjoyed is, the research, potential research areas that you highlighted for us, for the audience as a doctoral student. That's really very useful. And sure, I think, we would love to share your presentation with our audience. And if anyone in the audience has any questions that they would still like to deliberate on or talk about more, please send those across. I will share the link to our email. Make sure to take that down, and please do reach out to us with your feedback and comments. Dr. Quesada, fantastic learning. I wish we had some of these avatar-driven tests when I was preparing for English language testing. Yeah. There's so much to learn when it comes to these technologies. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining. Thank you. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, Dr. Quesada. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.